Very happy to have here with me my friend and colleague Alyx Spurrier. We're going to talk about art and using artificial intelligence as a tool in making art. I'll just introduce Alyx a little more. We're selling these posters over here that we're printing live. Alyx did this art. He's an illustrator, and he is not just an artist, but a t-shirt artist, which isn't the same thing in my book. He really knows the medium, and but he's versatile as well, and he designed this poster, and goes to a good cause, a homeless program here called Upspire. And all right, Alyx, what do you use artificial intelligence for, huh?
Okay, so let me just start off by saying I'm an illustrator with 10 years of experience. AI is a relatively new thing for a lot of people. It's still in its infancy. So today I want to kind of give you guys a little breakdown of what I've been experimenting with and how it helps me being a one-man band, so to say. It helps me in numerous different ways, so I think this slideshow will kind of give you a peek on the inside of what's going on. And in a few years, who knows where this technology will take us, but I think it's pretty interesting. I think you guys will enjoy it. So
yeah, bring this on, and then we'll maybe talk a little more, and then we'll have questions.
Cool.
All right?
Sounds good. So first off, I'd like to open up here. There's two images of dogs, right? One is real. It's a real photo. One is not real. So with a show of hands, who thinks the one on the left is real? Okay. And the one on the right, who thinks that one is real? Okay. The first one is real. The other one is completely fake. That is generated by a program called Midjourney. You basically type in a prompt and it spits out an image. So this is an example of something that it does really good at. There's a lot of references of dogs on the internet, so it knows what a dog looks like, right? So it's kind of crazy though. You could almost see the one on the right in a puppy food ad, right? And it took probably a minute to generate, so pretty crazy. So this, when you Google armadillo, this is what comes up, right? Now this is an example of what it doesn't do very well, okay? This is what AI thinks an armadillo looks like, specifically a 9-banded armadillo.
That is creepy.
They look like weird little Pokemons, right? It's kind of a nightmare fuel. So if you wanted to use this for stock imagery for an armadillo, it's just not going to work. So this is an example of where it doesn't succeed, yet at least. Maybe in the next couple years it'll know exactly what an armadillo is.
Only when they come as common as dogs, I guess.
Right, yeah. When people start having them in their homes and feeding them. So this is a couple of examples of how I start to use it whenever I have a project that I just need inspiration for. The top left is a prompt that you basically enter with plain text. This is what I want to see. And for this one, it's armadillo riding a bike. This is what a client was wanting on a t-shirt. So I said, okay, let's just go see what it thinks. Because if you Google an armadillo riding a bike, it's not going to show up, right? It's not a thing. So as you can see, none of them are actually armadillos. It's like a lizard rat mixture. So that's not going to work for a t-shirt, right? The client's not going to be happy if I just copy that and put it on there. So along the way, you do find some random gems, and this comes in many different forms. While these don't really work for this particular project, I thought they were pretty cool. I think the one on the right could be like a 90s emo album cover, or I don't know, t-shirt. But it's really cool too to see some of the color palettes that it generates. And the one on the left could be done in 2 colors. One on the right could be 3 colors. Here's some other random gems. And this is not at all what I was going for, but it's still inspiring nonetheless, as far as color swatches and potentials for other projects maybe, right? So salvaged assets. Every time I play around with this thing, it's like scratching a lottery ticket. You never know what you're going to get, if it's going to be good or bad. So this is kind of, the one on the left is very Salvador Dali, nightmare fuel. But with the help of other AI tools, specifically generative fill and Photoshop, which is really new, you can easily take those things away and you have a decent backdrop for some other illustration, right? So that's easy as selecting those things and hitting generate, and it fills it in for you. Much easier than the clone stamp tool, much quicker. And for somebody like me that is a one-man band, the quicker I can get things done, the better. So some more salvaged assets. Obviously, I'm not going to use the rat with 6 legs on the left, so I took him out. And then I thought, okay, that could be a cool frame for something. But I like the little tear on the edges. So I said, okay, I can take that. I'm going to, live trace it in Illustrator. I'll make a stroke out of it, and then I have a brush, right? So there's just so many creative possibilities with this stuff. If you kind of squint your eyes and tilt your head at it. Another thing that I've been working on recently is generated texture patterns, or textures and patterns. So these are actually seamless patterns that can go on forever. They connect whenever you make a pattern out of them in Photoshop or Illustrator. And I've been using them a lot to generate subtle crack textures, scratches, all kinds of fun stuff. And I'll just make a vector pattern out of that in Illustrator, and I have a folder of these things that I use pretty frequently. So at some point, you get to the point where you're like, okay, well, I've seen about all the weird armadillo rat things riding bikes that I can see, right? So where do you go with it? Where did this wind up? It actually wound up looking something like this. So this is unfinished, but for a client of mine, I removed the type and all that for just showing this. But as you can tell, I didn't use any of the assets that were generated. The texture was, but really I got inspiration from Midjourney, from the AI. And I think it is really helpful especially for projects that they're asking for something that you can't Google and have a reference of, right? So after you make a t-shirt design, the client usually wants to see how it's going to look in the real world. So what do? You print a sample, and then you have your buddy come over, and then you bribe him with a six-pack, and then you take a picture, right, with your Canon that you have in your closet for over a year now. It's dusty. But then what if you don't have the budget to do that, to print the shirt, right? You just make the mock-up, right? It's a mock-up. But then what if you don't have a camera? What if you don't have any friends? You don't need them. The whole image is generated. So that's all just a prompt that a computer generated. And none of these guys are real. They show up on time. They no pay. Yeah, you don't have to give them beer. You don't have to bribe them. Never in a bad mood. And there's an endless supply of them. And if you wanted to replicate one of them, There's actually the ability to do different poses with the same AI-generated person. So where do you go with this? Obviously, in my book, I say, okay, I want to get creative, you know. I'm going to make some mock-ups that are out of the ordinary. So let's do a shirt in the desert, floating off the ground. You could do a shot like this in real life, right? You could go out with your camera, set up in the desert. You'd be sweating the whole time. It'd be, 10-hour trip. Or you could just type it in and generate something like this. I think it really comes in handy with promoting stuff. All of these I've made into templates in Photoshop. So you can change the color of the shirt, put your own design on it, and it looks like it's printed on there. This is some more of the desert theme. Also was playing around with a demolition theme. So just getting creative with how, after the artwork is done, how your shirt is going to be presented to people. This could easily go on Instagram, on stories, and nobody would ever question if you took the photo or not. And you don't have to climb to the top of a building with a demolished city to get yourself to the point where you can show off your product before you even have it. So why use AI for t-shirt design? In my opinion, it increases my efficiency, it boosts my creativity, allows me to rapidly prototype, gives me random perspectives that I would never think of, and it strengthens my visual library. So as an artist, that's it's critical to look at a lot of things. And it's usually me Googling a whole bunch of stuff and gathering visual information. But with AI, you get it's like an alien approach to something that you've never seen before. So,
did any of these really surprise you as you started getting into using it as a tool? I know for me, the idea, I thought it would more homogenize things, and in some ways, though, it randomizes. And the creativity ones, I think the one that surprised me the most.
Yeah, that's kind of why I like it. It's like a scratch-off ticket. I never know if it's going to be good or bad, but even the bad stuff, it has something to it that makes me think differently.
Well, it seems like you take the visual elements and you kind of roll the dice, and you get some crazy things. And so my thought on the whole AI situation, I know there's a lot of different topics going around, and it's virtually impacting every part of every industry at this point. But AI is here to stay. It's your friend for now, at least. We don't know where it'll be. Let's remain suspicious, I think.
Yeah. I'm a little skeptical, but you keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So I would say use it to your advantage. Even as a visual artist, I think that I get a lot of advantage from, if not just the colorways and some of the generations, and seeing how the shapes might work and the compositions. So, with that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all have.
All right.
I have a question. For the seamless repeats, like seamless repeat patterns, is the prompt generate, does it understand, generate a seamless repeat
they actually
pattern?
they have an attribute in it that's called basically tile, is what it is, and you just add that. You add that to the bottom. It's okay. You add that to the bottom or the back end of the prompt, and it knows to make it repeating. Thank you.
That's cool.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is that it's got to the point recently where they're making constant updates to this stuff. The pattern option wasn't a thing about 6 months ago, and then before that, 6 months before that, it didn't even exist. So out of the last year and a half, they just keep generating crazier and crazier things. So.
Yeah.
So kind of following up with her question, is that through the AI generated, or as you were saying, the Photoshop?
That was the textures are generated with AI. So I use a program called Midjourney, and that's the one that actually generates the images from text. But then you take those into Photoshop or Illustrator and actually make the repeating patterns out of them.
That seems like one of the most useful things that I see, that even without a lot of work looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Whereas the armadillo example is perfect, or I even felt the dog was a little creepy, like and weird, and like the textures though are just works.
Yeah, the textures are something I've been pretty excited about, because obviously people sell textures all over the place online, but having an endless supply of random textures for t-shirts in particular is pretty fun.
Someone that was generating stuff with Midjourney and teaches class, he's like, "Doesn't that look good?" And showed me this thing. I was like, "No, it doesn't actually." But the texture behind it looked pretty good.
I've found that most of the image generation, if you put like t-shirt design or something, it looks pretty good from far, but whenever you really start picking it apart, it looks like some type of alien, I don't know, it's odd, it's strange.
Some of it's sinister, actually. We had like a bunch of designs done for us, and all I can say, I mean, one was like a rainbow and woodcut, like that sounds nice. No, it was creepy. Something was creepy about it.
They also, before they made one of the recent updates, if you generated someone, it did a good job with the faces, but their hands, they would have like 7 12-inch fingers, and it was just creepy.
Old animators used to use 3 fingers, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so. Whatever.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, exactly.
The glove.
All right, other questions?
After you're done with Midjourney, do you go into Photoshop and you change 300 DPI? Do you go anywhere else after that to like Topaz or somewhere else to just change
Topaz is cool. I've used them before, and then they upped their prices on me, and I didn't like that. So there's actually a open source image upscaler, which would work on the production side of things too. If someone sends you low quality artwork, it's called Upscale with a YL. I don't know how to spell it specifically, but that is completely free, open source, and it does a really good job. You can take an image from 800 pixels up to 35 to 4,000, and it does actually a really good job. So if I do need to do some upscaling for particular elements, I just use Upscale. So
I said it doesn't up any like noise that's in the image or whatever?
it's actually really good.
Figures that out?
Yeah, it makes, even with text that's kind of fuzzy around the edges, I've used it, and it sharpens the edges up pretty nice. So
Oh, man, all those people overseas that call me up and want to redraw things, are they going to be out of business?
Maybe.
Or we're going to get more calls first than no
You
calls,
just
I guess, maybe.
Upscale it and then trace it in Illustrator, you're golden. I mean, I've done it on a few different flyers that I've done where somebody sends out a low resolution logo, and instead of going back and forth in an email, I just throw it in the Upscale program, and it makes it sharp. So
Other questions? Here's your chance.
Just a quick question. Have you found any AI tools that are good at just removing a background? So like if you want to make a transparent image?
So actually in Photoshop, I don't know if this is still beta. I work with the beta version because it usually is where they're putting all the new stuff. So it might not be in the latest version of Photoshop, but if it's not, it'll probably be in the next release. It's called Select Subject, and you hit that, and it does a really good job, even with hair and stuff that's been, you might have to get a tablet and feather it and really do some work to mask something out. They're doing a really good job with and that's an AI tool as well, because it's finding the subject of whatever picture it is and doing it. It does a pretty good job separating. You might have to go in there and sharpen up a few little nooks and crannies, but for the most part, it does a killer job. So, and I know too, Firefly, which is another Adobe product, they're getting into the image generation game as well. I haven't really messed around with that at all, but if Adobe's looking into it, I mean, we're not going backwards from here. You know, it's like power tools and versus chisels at this point. If you're not using something that's helping you AI-wise, you're probably in the caveman days.
Yeah, you know what I really liked was the mock-up generation. We got to do a lot of those, and sometimes they're not worth spending that much time on, you know?
And or finding the right one for the right mood of a project. I do branding projects, and t-shirt for a streetwear company is going to be different than a winery, right? So just the ability to kind of put the artwork in the real world, right, on a mock-up that makes sense for that brand, also helps sell the idea a lot better up front, so that people can imagine what it's going to look like whenever it's in the real world.
Makes things possible that weren't before. So when you had to pay like $250 to digitize something, you couldn't do 25 hats. You know, it wouldn't be possible. So now, if you want to do a store for someone, it's not high volume. Before, if you had to spend a lot of time on doing the art for their store, you couldn't do that low volume. And we work with some little nonprofits or artists that aren't going to sell thousands of shirts. You have to have some way to present their stuff, and this seems like a really good tool for that.
And it, for websites, for social media, it's just really good at getting attention, getting eyes on the product. So it's very helpful in that way.
It's not a replacement, though, for a lot of things. It's not a replacement for
tried.
drawing, and it's not a replacement for creativity, really,
it's
or
not.
Having an eye, or a lot of things. It's not.
It's
a
really
replacement
not.
For.
You still have to have, like, you can have a pirate ship, but there still has to be a captain aboard, because otherwise you're going to wind up with some kind of creepy looking stuff. And like I said, who knows where this technology will be a year from now. It might be a different topic at the next shop talk, but we'll see.
It seems like it also gets rid of some of the drudgery. Like, you know what I mean? You don't want to be sitting there drawing backgrounds, you know?
It's also, like I said, it's getting into a lot of different avenues too. I do some website development, and I'm more concerned with it taking coders' jobs, because it is code, people that build websites. I don't know, I'd be worried if that was my bread and butter, but I still think that creatively, like, it still needs a human touch to kind of refine this stuff.
I think also the more it gets AI, the more that things that are not will be valued in some ways. I mean, you're not going to do old school typesetting for most things, but when somebody does do an old letterpress or something, it looks pretty cool, and you get or a hand printed poster, right?
Yeah.
Versus offset or digital. It looks different.
Yeah.
You're not going to totally copy it.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be a place. Other questions? All right, Alex will be around here for a couple minutes if you want to ask a question in private. How about a hand for Alyx Spurrier?
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks for coming, and thanks to our sponsors that make all this happen. Los Angeles Apparel, Hirsch, Fairweather Johnson, Alpha Broder, Stalls, and Reese. And check out In Kitchen's YouTube channel, where this will eventually appear.